Hello, everyone, and welcome to another session. Today, I would like to review in detail Siddhartha's austere practices. I will examine the challenges he faced and the factors that compelled him to abandon them in favor of his relentless pursuit of enlightenment. As we learned in the last session, after appointing himself to Alara Kalama and Uddaka Ramaputta, Siddhartha decides to leave those practices after proving that they did not lead to Nibbana. And in his ongoing search, he joins a group of 5 ascetics to learn and investigate if this new practice and discipline can help him achieve his goal. Among his companions, Siddhartha distinguished himself as the most resolute and austere practitioner. His unwavering determination and discipline were so profound that it was widely believed that if any ascetic were to attain enlightenment, it would be Siddhartha. To illustrate this, we can closely examine the practices he undertook and see how he pushed each of them to their extreme limits. During that period, Siddhartha lived a holy life possessing 4 factors. He said, "I have been an ascetic, a supreme ascetic. I have been coarse, supremely coarse. I have been scrupulous, supremely scrupulous. I have been secluded, supremely secluded." Such was his asceticism that he went naked, rejecting conventions, licking his hands, not coming when asked, not stopping when asked. He rejected food, drinks, and social conventions, living on a diet of forest roots, fruits, and other unconventional foods. He took food once a day, once every 2 days, once every 7 days, even up to once every fortnight. He dwelt pursuing the practice of taking food at stated intervals. He rejected conventional clothing and shelter dwellings. He stood continuously rejecting seats. He devoted himself to maintaining the squatting position. He used a mattress of spikes and making a mattress of spikes his bed. He dwelt pursuing the practice of tormenting and mortifying the body. Such was his asceticism. Such was his coarseness that dust and dirt accumulated in him over the years, that it caked and flaked off his body without occurring to him to rub it off with his hand, nor asking others to do so. Such was his coarseness. Such was his scrupulousness that he was always mindful in stepping forwards and stepping backwards. He was full of pity even in regard to a drop of water, so he did not hurt the tiny creatures in the crevices of the ground. Such was his scrupulousness. Such was his seclusion that he fled from people like a deer while abiding in the forest, trying not to be seen and not to see others. Such was his seclusion. He further recollects and describes his extreme austere practices. He used to feed on the dung of the young suckling calves. He fed on his own excrement and urine. Such was his great practice of feeding on filth. In winter, he will dwell by night in the open and by day in the grove. In the last month of the hot season, he will dwell by day in the open and by night in the grove. Chilled by night and scorched by day, alone in awe-inspiring groves, naked, no fire to sit beside, the sage yet pursues his quest. He will make his bed in the charnel ground with the bones of the dead for a pillow. In reference to his eating habits, he considered, "Suppose I take very little food, a handful each time, whether of bean soup or lentil soup or pea soup. So I took very little food, a handful each time. And while I did so, my body reached a state of extreme emaciation. Because of eating so little, my limbs became like jointed segments of vine stems or bamboo stems. Because of eating so little, my backside became like a camel's hoof. Because of eating so little, the projections on my spine stood forth like corded beads. Because of eating so little, my ribs jutted out as gaunt as the crazy rafters of an old roofless barn. Because of eating so little, the gleam of my eyes sank far down in their sockets, looking like the gleam of water that has sunk far down in a deep well. Because of eating so little, my scalp shriveled and withered as the green bitter gourd shrivels and withers in the wind and sun. Because of eating so little, my belly skin adhered to my backbone. Thus, if I touched my belly skin, I encountered my backbone, and if I touched my backbone, I encountered my belly skin. Because of eating so little, if I defecated or urinated, I fell over on my face there. Because of eating so little, if I tried to ease my body by rubbing my limbs with my hands, the hair, rotted at its roots, fell from my body as I rubbed. I'd like to pause here for a moment and ask, who will undertake such a profound, radical, and extreme approach to their practice? Why will anyone consider doing that? What potential reward could be attained by risking one's own life in such a pursuit? It is evident that the severity of the problem he encountered, suffering, was directly proportional to the reward he sought, enlightenment. The bliss of Nibbana is the ultimate goal. It is priceless. Its purity and nobility helps us also understand how difficult it is to attain it. Suffering, however, is like a muddy and swampy terrain that makes it difficult and tedious to walk on, almost impossible to traverse. The nature of suffering that Siddhartha experienced was such a fundamental problem for him that he took it very seriously, to the extent that he was willing to risk his own life in order to achieve its cessation, Nibbana. To this point, Siddhartha's intentions, sincerity, and honesty have been tested to their limits. It is undeniable that he was resolute in his pursuit of enlightenment. In perspective, we can ask ourselves, how many will have given up upon encountering the first or second obstacle in their quest? How many will have complained upon experiencing discomfort, uneasiness, or pain in their abiding? Or how many will have blamed their teachers, companions, or even the world around for not finding a solution to the problem? These questions can help us understand Siddhartha's quest by putting ourselves in his shoes, adopt his perspective, and gain deeper understanding of the circumstances under which he lived and the challenges he faced. If we open our heart, we can empathize, see and feel through Siddhartha's heart what he experienced while walking this path. The practice of austerities brought great pain, discomfort, and unpleasant feelings in him. His body was overwrought and uncalm because of the exhaustion by the painful striving. But he said that such painful feelings that arose in him did not invade his mind and remain. In other words, he didn't react to them, he remained equanimous. And regarding this, he contrasted his painful experience to that of other ascetics and practitioners, and stated, whatever recluses or Brahmins in the past, in the future, or at present, who experience painful, racking, piercing feelings due to exertion, the ones I experienced are the utmost. There is none beyond this. And by this racking practice of austerities, he realized that he had not attained any superhuman states, any distinction in knowledge and vision worthy of the noble ones. This realization gives rise to another fundamental question. Could there be another path to enlightenment? So to this point, after going through so many different practices, after investing not only his time, energy, effort, his determination, his resolve, he comes to this point in which he sees no solution. And even in every practice or teacher that he appointed himself to, he got this recognition. He went through the practice and the training, and he was awarded with highest positions to be an accompanying teacher, to be a successor of a teacher. And he got so much respect and trust among his 5 friends practicing austerities that they believed that if anyone could attain enlightenment, it was going to be him. So for Siddhartha to leave these practices, he also had something to lose. Even though he didn't take ownership, he didn't identify with any titles, renown, or any prize or reward. And the quality that stands out here at this juncture is his humbleness, his sincerity and honesty, his humbleness in not grasping to all the effort, energy, and time invested during his 6 years of ascetic practices. Humbleness in the sense that he didn't hesitate to let go. Humbleness in the sense that he did not identify to any practice. He did not identify with any achievements, with any rewards. He did not think of himself as better or greater than others. Humbleness in the sense that he did not let the weight of all the recognition, the rewards, the achievements lead his path. Humbleness in the sense that he was able to come back to his intention. He was able to come back to his problem, and there was no hesitation to let go of anything just at that very moment and question himself, what now? After all I did, after all I tried, after all I invested, he gave himself in to this practice. He sacrificed himself. He gifted his life to this path. He did not reserve anything. He gave it all. And yet, despite all that, the problem, it was still there. Recognizing and taking into consideration these qualities of humbleness, sincerity, and honesty with himself are so important and crucial on Siddhartha's path. After asking himself, could there be another path to enlightenment? Siddhartha recalls a time when his father organized a ceremonial plowing at a traditional festival of the Sakyans, and there Siddhartha had a place prepared for him under the cool shade of a rose apple tree. And when his attendants left him to watch the plowing ceremony, Prince Siddhartha naturally sat up in a meditation posture and attained what is called the first jhana through mindfulness of breathing. Jhana is a meditative state of absorption, of deep concentration that brings about rapture and pleasure, pure joy. And remembering this, he considered, could that be the path to enlightenment? Contemplating, he came to this realization, that is indeed the path to enlightenment. In the practice of austerities, any type of joy and pleasure is considered to be a danger, an obstruction to the path to liberation. Therefore, any form of joy and pleasure connected to sensual desires was commonly rejected by ascetics. Then Siddhartha thought, why am I afraid of that pleasure that has nothing to do with sensual desires and unwholesome states? The pleasure he is referring to is the pleasure that he experienced in his meditative state. At that moment he said, I am not afraid of that pleasure since it has nothing to do with sensual pleasures and unwholesome states. The pleasure and joy he experienced in this meditative state is born of seclusion and detachment, and it is seen as a valuable support of the higher stages along the path to enlightenment. So Siddhartha considered, it is not easy to attain that pleasure with the body so excessively emaciated. So he considered to eat some solid food once again, some boiled rice and porridge, and he ate solid food once again. Now at that time, his 5 companions were waiting upon him. If recluse Gotama achieves some higher state, he will inform us. But then they see him eating and they became disgusted and they left him, thinking, the recluse Gotama now lives luxuriously. He has given up his striving and reverted to luxury. Can anyone imagine how he might have felt after all his investment, after all he sacrificed? He is now being despised and rejected by his companions. He lost the faith and trust they placed in him. It was a risky move for Siddhartha to abandon his 6 years of austere practices. Nonetheless, he trusted his heart. He trusted his experience. He trusted his insight. But most importantly, he remembered his intention to be free from suffering, without grasping his current achievements. He honored the reason why he left the palace and went forth on the search for enlightenment. And also because suffering was still present and reminded him what he had to do. That despite all he did up to this point, it was still not sufficient. It did not answer his question. It did not solve the problem of suffering. Relying on this, he moved on and continued his quest, but this time alone by himself. Still in search of what is wholesome, seeking the supreme state of sublime peace, he traveled through the Magadhan country until eventually he arrived at Uruvela. Magadha was a kingdom at that time which nowadays corresponds to the Indian state of Bihar. And Uruvela was a locality in the neighborhood of the Bodhi tree at what today is Bodh Gaya. There he saw an agreeable piece of ground, a delightful grove with a clear flowing river with pleasant smooth banks, and nearby a village for alms resort. And he considered, these will serve for striving. Here he will spend time to settle down, to eat well in order to regain his strength and recover from his austere practices. And during this period, he continues his practice of meditation, going into deep concentration. He goes through these deep states of absorption that are called jhanas. It's a succession of different states of concentration, one deeper than the other. There are these 4 jhanas in which he goes through, one after the other, going deeper and deeper, every one of them more pure, until he reaches his 4th jhana. And in this deep state of absorption, 3 knowledges arise in Siddhartha that will lead him to his final enlightenment. Being in such absorption, his mind was concentrated, purified, bright, unblemished, malleable, wieldy, steady, and imperturbable. Then he directed it to knowledge of the recollection of past lives. He recollected his manifold past lives, from 1 birth to 100 births, from 1,000 births to 100,000 births, many eons of world contraction and expansion. He recollected the names he had, the clans he belonged to, his appearance, his experience of pleasure and pain, what he ate, and his lifespans. He recalls passing away from one life and reappearing elsewhere, repeating the same cycle over and over. With their aspects and particulars, he recollected his manifold past lives in detail. This was the first true knowledge he attained in the first watch of the night. Ignorance was banished, and true knowledge arose. Darkness was banished, and light arose, as happens in one who abides diligent, ardent, and resolute. In his deep meditative state, with a purified mind, he focused on knowledge of the passing away and reappearance of beings. With the divine eye, purified and surpassing the human, he saw beings passing away and reappearing, inferior and superior, fair and ugly, fortunate and unfortunate. He understood how beings pass on based on their actions. Worthy beings who were ill-conducted, revilers of noble ones, and wrong in their views and actions, reappear in a state of deprivation, a bad destination, or even hell. Conversely, he saw worthy beings who were well conducted, not revilers of noble ones, right in their views and actions, reappear in a good destination, even in the heavenly world. This was the second true knowledge that he attained in the second watch of the night. Ignorance was banished, and true knowledge arose. Darkness was banished, and light arose, as happens in one who abides diligent, ardent, and resolute. With a mind still concentrated and purified, bright, unblemished, malleable, wieldy, steady, and imperturbable, he directed it to knowledge of the destruction of the taints. He directly knew, as it actually is, this is suffering, this is the origin of suffering, this is the cessation of suffering, this is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. He directly knew, as it actually is, these are the taints, this is the origin of the taints, this is the cessation of the taints. This is the way leading to the cessation of the taints. The taints are the defilements or corruptions of the mind. They defile, bring renewal of being, and ripening suffering, and lead to future birth, aging, and death. When he knew and saw this, his heart was liberated from the taint of sensual desire, from the taint of becoming, and from the taint of ignorance. When it was liberated, there came the knowledge, it is liberated. He directly knew birth is destroyed. The holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There is no more coming to any state of being. This was the third true knowledge that he attained in the last watch of the night. Ignorance was banished, and true knowledge arose. Darkness was banished, and light arose, as happens in one who abides diligent, ardent, and resolute. He said, "The knowledge and vision arose in me. My deliverance is unshakable. This is my last birth. Now there is no renewal of being." With this, Siddhartha penetrated the deepest truths of the Dhamma. He discovered the law of dependent arising, paticca samuppada. He developed insight into the real characteristics of all things, and he arrived at the realization of the Four Noble Truths. At the end of the night, his heart was liberated from all the screens of ignorance, and he sat beneath the Bodhi tree no longer a bodhisattva, a seeker of enlightenment, but now a finder of enlightenment, a Samma Sambuddha, a perfectly enlightened one. This is such an inspiring story, reviewing Siddhartha's life from his birth, growing in the palace, his search for enlightenment, the practices he had to undergo, the challenges he faced, and finally arriving at its goal, arriving at finding a solution to his problem. And we can see his intention throughout his journey, and the qualities of humility, humbleness, sincerity, and honesty towards his intention, his patience and endurance, resilience, conviction to keep trying, never give up, not to surrender. It can inspire us to look at ourselves, to see where we are, what challenges one may have been experiencing. And as I mentioned in previous sessions, how important it is to review our own intention by paying close attention to the challenges that we experience. Of course, in Siddhartha's life now, a Buddha achieving the highest goal, we relate to this not necessarily to solve simple or trivial problems in our daily life, but actually, when we reflect, when we consider whatever challenges we may be going through, and when we find our intention and align our heart to this path, aiming it to this goal of the eradication and liberation from suffering, we naturally are able to overcome, to transcend, to rise above different issues, problems, challenges, and difficulties in every experience we have of suffering. So we can consider to walk this path and align and learn these wonderful, wholesome spiritual qualities that make our lives much more bright, much more pure, much more wholesome, that bring benefits to ourselves, they bring benefits to others, and bring benefit to both ourselves and others. So with this, we can conclude our session today and kindly invite everyone to pay homage to the Triple Gem, to pay homage to the Buddha, the Blessed One, who fully attained perfect enlightenment, to pay homage to the Dhamma, the teachings which he well expounded, and paying homage to the Sangha, the community of monastics that continue to practice well and share the Dhamma with the world. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. I wish you all a good day, and we see each other in the next session.